warm welcome to all of you on this special occasion for the launch of the Global Arena magazine. It's great to have you all joining us from different countries, along with our esteemed panelists together on this platform. Global Arena is a first of its kind magazine in India, dedicated to international investment opportunities, residency and citizenship by investment options in countries across globe for resident Indians. The biannual magazine is an initiative of GMN Media, the organizers of International Real Estate Expo and IRAX Residency and Citizenship Conclave, with an objective to serve as a ready reference for Indians that will help educate readers on the benefits of international investments in real estate, familiarize them with residency and citizenship by investment programs, give comparative analysis of different programs, feature country profiles, new investment destinations, US EB5 and E2 visas, European Golden visas, opportunities of investment in international FTZs, advantage of setting up offshore companies and conducting offshore business, and much more. Let's see the short video on the magazine. Great. Without further delay, we bring you a panel discussion with some of the experts who have written for the first edition of Global Arena magazine. The session will be of 45 minutes, followed by Q&As for 15 minutes. I would like to introduce Anisha Nair Dhawan, our special guest moderator. Anisha is a seasoned television journalist and business news anchor and has worked with some of India's top television channels. She has contributed with an insightful article on Indians buying property abroad in the Global Arena magazine, requesting her to moderate over this much awaited panel discussion. Over to you, Anisha.
Thanks, Rohan. Thank you so much. Indeed, the launch of the Global Arena magazine is very exciting as this is a treasure trove of information on the residency and citizenship by investment programs run by many countries these days. Now, the information in the magazine is pure gold for all the high net worth individuals in India looking to invest and live abroad, but unsure on which destination is just right for them and what is the process to apply for the residency by investment RBI or citizenship program. Now, leading immigration consultants have shared the wealth of their knowledge and their experience in different articles in the Global Arena magazine to explain why RBI actually makes sense for HNIs, What are the eligibility conditions and the procedures to follow to make a successful application? The magazine is the one you really want to get your hands on, as it has so many details of all the popular residency programs offered by different countries. Now, to give you a sneak peek into the detailed analysis of the residency programs that different countries mentioned in the global arena, we are delighted to welcome the consultants who have contributed to the magazine. Over the next 1 hour, I'll discuss with them on how to zero down on the right countries for you if you're looking to immigrate. How do you stand to benefit should you make that decision? And what are the different categories to apply for the RBI programs and how you can make a successful application. So please join me in welcoming our speakers today. We have Ignacio Donoso, Managing Partner, Donoso and Partners LLC. He has written an article on Canada, a land of opportunities for immigrants. Then we have Nirbhay Handa, Managing Director and Head of South Asia, Henley and Partners, joining us. He's written a very comprehensive article on the European golden visas and how Indian investors can look to navigate any options that are now available in Europe. We have John Baker, Chief Marketing Officer, LCR Capital Partners, who is now talking about the EB5 program. Lots of questions on that program. A lot of heartburn for some investors who've already invested. So, we're going to talk about the EB5 program and how it is attractive, still attractive for many Indian individuals looking to invest in the US. We have David Chaya, Director, Vanuatu Citizenship Center. He's going to talk about the citizenship plan for this small little island close to Australia. Why Indians should consider this one as well. And we have Natasha Jones, Legal Advisor, Government Advisory Practice, CS Global Partners. She's going to talk to us about the options available in the Caribbean, because there's a huge number of beautiful islands there, and some of them offer great programs for investors looking for residency. And then we have the TP Oswal, Managing Partner, TP Oswal and Associates LLP. Very, very important to understand the laws, the rules, your eligibility criteria, your taxation, your income. So all those things have been clarified by Mr. TP Oswal in great detail in the article that he has sent for Global Arena. Lot of things that everybody gets excited about. Oh, this looks so great, and I have money. Let's just go for it. But Mr. Oswal article will make you step back, think, and plan your application. So we have Mr. Oswal with us, and a warm welcome to all of you for joining us. Thank you all for sparing the time. Nirbhay, let me start with you. So far when we think about Indians emigrating to Europe, we only think about largely the UK, because first there's already a large Indian diaspora in the UK. Now, are Indians opening up about the residency programs in other European countries? And is language a barrier at all for them to make this decision?
Hey, Anisha, thank you for the question. I believe we deal with pretty much two set of audience in India. We have Indian families who are looking to actually migrate, and then we have Indian families who are just looking at an alternative residence as a bit of a means to hedge their sovereign risk. And I think most of the families that we work with, primarily who are resident Indians, they look at an alternative residence, just as a means of an insurance policy. So now families in Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, they're thinking, should I be buying my next home in my home city? Or should I be buying that in Athens or Lisbon for a quarter of the wealth that I'll be spending in these big metropolis cities in India, and also get my child a Schengen residency along with it? And the second piece which is really interesting, what we've seen is education in Europe has become more bilingual over the last 10 years. So you've got great universities, you've got NCR, you've got great boarding schools in Switzerland, IMD, IE in Spain. So an underlying motivator, education, which was really crucial for Indians, particularly when they were looking at EB5, because we trust the US education system. Families are also realizing the European education is becoming much more approachable as it becomes bilingual. So Europe in general is gaining traction amongst Indians for several reasons. I think the number one would be it's a great means to diversify your wealth and invest in an appreciating asset, whether that's a fund or a real estate option in Portugal or Greece. The second piece is, it's a great opportunity for Indian families to give their child, and they can access global markets because on Indian citizenship, you could travel to 26 Schengen countries if you have a Schengen residency along with you, right? And the third piece is there is a lifestyle element to it. So we have families who are asking the question, hey, should I buy my next holiday home in Goa or should I go to Crete or Corfu? And I think that's also played and has played a pivotal role in driving interest around European residence by investment programs in India.
Right. So hedging against the sovereign risk, planning ahead for education. So a lot of reasons for Indians to look at some of the European countries now and look to invest there and perhaps seek a residency permit there. Natasha, I understand the logic of Europe because you get the Schengen visa, and with the Schengen visa, you have a lot of freedom to move around, to work in a country. Plus, education is good, healthcare facilities is good. So, when it comes to the Caribbeans, are Indians looking in the Caribbean only to build a vacation home? Because, like Letha mentioned, that is another reason why high net worth individuals in India look at investments abroad. Instead of a holiday home in Goa or someplace in India, why not look abroad? So, who are the most, what are the kind of Indians or HNIs who are attracted to seeking RBI or citizenship in the Caribbean?
So I think, again, the sort of people that we see showing interest in the Caribbean are people that are looking for that plan B, and they're looking for that sort of exit route if they ever need one, as the previous speaker said. And I think that is probably our biggest demographic. And because so the programs in the Caribbean obviously are citizenship by investment programs, and a citizenship is the sort of ultimate plan B because of the fact that for a person obtaining citizenship, it's very hard to lose citizenship, and so that with that citizenship, you know that you have that exit route if you need it, and you know that that's secure. And I think the reason that the Caribbean is particularly attractive in terms of getting citizenship as opposed to residence is the fact that the Caribbean citizenship programs are known for their sort of, how do you word it, very quick, speedy processing times as opposed to certain other programs. So in the Caribbean, for example, you're looking at an average in most countries. So for example, in Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis and St. Lucia, you're looking at an average processing time of around 3 months from submission of an application to an approval in principle. And it's that sort of knowledge that if you are a reputable individual and if you do pass the due diligence checks, the fact that you can receive your citizenship in 3 months is something that's very valuable to the demographic that we see applying from India. And so I think that is the main attraction for Caribbean programs, definitely.
Right. Natasha, go through the article. It's very detailed. You have a lot of tables of the different options as well. So primarily, when Indians look to invest in any of the Caribbean countries, are they making donations? Are they investing in real estate? Because the article details the number of options which are available in the Caribbean. And like you said, it happens at quick fire pace.
Oh, there are a number of investment options available under Caribbean programs. I mean, with every single Caribbean citizenship by investment program, there's the opportunity to invest in a government fund. And this is usually the most popular option, just because it is the most direct route. It's normally the speediest, and there are less intermediaries involved. So with, for example, a real estate option where you would have a lot of hefty documentation, for example, purchase and sale agreements, you have escrow agreements. With the fund option, it sort of reduces all that documentation. And so it is, we like to say that it's the most direct route. And so I would say that the fund option is the most popular when we have Indian applicants applying. However, there are outside of those contribution and real estate options, there are other options available in Caribbean citizenship by investment programs, particularly in Antigua and Barbuda and St. Lucia. And now in St. Kitts and Nevis with the 2 new investment options that have been implemented. So for investors looking for that quick, direct route to citizenship, there are a lot of options in the Caribbean, but there are now more options for people that are looking for greater options outside of the donation route, looking to invest in business or alternative alternative infrastructural projects, that sort of thing.
Right. So a lot of options, and of course, quick processing time is a big draw for those who want things done a little quickly. Ignacio, the Canada Express entry is very popular amongst Indians. But the point system gets a little confusing at times. In your article, you've given us a proper table on the point system on different categories. But the question still is this only for the young and highly skilled professionals? Because you want to de-risk against a sovereign risk, but some people also want to grow professionally. If they feel that Canada could be a place that you could grow professionally because there is demand for the skills you have. So, but is it only for young and highly skilled professionals?
It's a great question, because clearly the Canadian system has been incredibly attractive to Indian immigrants, investors, and particularly ever since 2015 with the rollout of the newer systems, the immigration flow from India to Canada, particularly for technology workers, has been extraordinary. And that's the real success story of the Canadian immigration system. It reflects the values of the country: extraordinary education, the language issue, of course, the safety, the sense of, let's say, a stable country with extraordinary features throughout. So that's Canada. But the program always skewed for young professionals, and it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. But there have been other programs in the Canadian system that have been very attractive, most famously the Labor Market Impact Assessment for owner-operators. And that particular program had a life cycle that, again, attracted a massive number of immigrant investors to residency in Canada through a temporary work permit, which is the Labor Market Impact Assessment, but that closed. It closed for purposes of this large flow of people in the spring, in March. And that left open the question, well, how do I, as an investor who does not skew into the express entry pool readily, bring my family to Canada? And the answer remains that there are good programs in Canada that are proving tremendously attractive. And what really has happened have been 2 things. The large majority of investors have moved away from the Labor Market Impact Assessment owner-operator model. That doesn't mean that it's really closed. It means that it's become more detail-oriented. It is focused on strict compliance with things that were not present in the program in the past. So the clear message that I'm sending regarding the Labor Market Impact Assessment for owner-operators is that it needs to be taken into account. It is not something that simply should be ignored by immigrant investors seeking to establish themselves in Canada. The key factors for that program: it is now necessary to conduct a recruitment campaign. That was not necessary before. It is now necessary to have a good faith job offer. It is now necessary to show that position that you're seeking into, that sponsorship for, will have employees underneath it that ensure that it satisfies the role of either a 00 NOC code or similar. And the government has become quite strict on this. Service Canada is focused on strict compliance to make sure that owner-operators are not foreclosed, but they do strictly comply with the requirements. The other thing that occurred after this spring, when the owner-operator model was changed significantly, was that immigrant investors pivoted to another program that has always been there for quite a while, but wasn't as popular. It's the C11 Entrepreneur Program. And that is a program that offers temporary stay with a work permit, access to permanent residency. So once again, it's agile, it's effective. What does it require? The basic idea is that the C11 permit allows an investor to buy a business or start a business that will be of a significant benefit to Canada. Significant benefit skews in two parts. One is cultural and artistic. Another one is entrepreneurial. And entrepreneurial splits into novel businesses and job creating businesses. Obviously, when we look at this, we want to maximize the possibility of success for a client. And what we recommend are investment amounts that are in the 200,000 Canadian dollar range, and job creation that has two features to it, which are attractive to the Canadian economy. Number one, job creation that will be significant. We want things that will create several jobs, not projects that are, let's say, bare minimum. This is not the way to do this program. This program is intended for purchasing a business that will have an impact, a footprint in job creation that the Canadian government can hang a grab and say, this is a good project. The other thing that we recommend is that investors look outside of classic metropolitan areas of Canada, such as Vancouver and Toronto, which are the two most popular destinations for immigrant investors. The reason we recommend that is because the job creation impact in outlying areas on the fringe of these large metropolitan areas or elsewhere not only are cheaper, not only will your dollar go further once you invest it, but it also has a much more credible argument as being something that is of interest economically to the Canadian economy. All of that being said, the program is tremendously useful and tremendously successful. It requires the same level of dedication and planning as the current LMIA program. It requires more than the old LMIA program. That's the truth. The old LMIA program was incredibly flexible. The investment amounts were very, very low. That is now over. The Canadian government said, okay, great, but we need to move to require more. There is no minimum investment amount for the C11 program. That's great, but don't go to the very bottom. I'm recommending the investment amounts that I recommend. Thank you.
All right. Ignacio, we'll discuss a little more about the investment-led immigration program and, touch back again on the different categories under which you can apply for the express visa. But talking about changes, you've spoken about so many changes that the Canadian government has brought about. I want to come to you, John. The EB-5 program is super popular with Indian investors, especially the regional center route. And now the law has lapsed, and investors who've already applied or even those who are looking to invest are in a quandary now. What are the options if somebody wants to go to the US?
Well, there are a number of options for people who are interested in coming to the US. And I think it's important to remind everyone that the EB-5 program as a base category of visas is a permanent program. It's the regional center program that has in fact lapsed. And there's been a lot of press and a lot of articles and a lot of webinars about that. We obviously are quite active in Washington and with various political advocacy groups. And we are optimistic that it will be reauthorized. We actually believe that given all of the turmoil, if investors are interested in coming to the US through the EB-5 program, whether it's through a direct program or through a reauthorized regional center program, that you get organized. You work with some of the consultants on this panel, you identify projects, you work through the documentation and source of funds work. There are other options for coming to the US, like Canada. There's multiple programs. The E2 is probably the second most well-known program. Of course, for Indians, there isn't an E2 treaty, so that often requires people, for example, to invest in Grenada, and then after achieving Grenadian citizenship, whether as the primary wage earner or a partner, one or the other, then using that to then come to the US as an entrepreneur, which is what the E2 visa is about, a temporary stay visa that's focused on investing in a new business, which you actually actively run. So there are multiple options, and obviously the EB-5 program, we always have to remember, has raised over $50 billion since its inception in 1990, with strong, support from both Democrats and Republicans, and came very close to being reauthorized with a 5-year extension and some new integrity measures, which we all support. We believe that it will come through again when Congress comes back, either in September or definitely before the end of the year.
Fingers crossed. We're all waiting for some good news soon. Mr. Ospal, we've heard a number of our consultants and contributors talk about the different options. But one thing I seem to understand is that it's not set in stone. Things change sometimes, but you can't always foresee what's going to happen in the future. You have to see what you have here now. Now, if somebody has the money and he wants to go ahead, what are the 3 most important factors that potential investors must consider before going in for a residency or a citizenship program in another country? Arranging funds, taxation, timelines. What are the most important factors that they should consider? Mr. Ospal, the question is for you. What are the 3 most important factors potential investors must consider before going in for a residency or a citizenship program, especially if you HNIs have the funds and they seem to do it, but what are the things they must keep in mind?
Correct. I'm sorry, my mic was unmuted, so therefore you could not listen. Yeah. You see, India is one of the exceptional countries which is really well regulated in terms of foreign exchange management in the country. So therefore, we control the foreign exchange. Current account transactions, of course, are freely allowed, but capital account transactions are restricted. If somebody wants to take money out of the country and he's a resident, he's allowed only to take $250,000 per annum. And India, the annum is from April to March, the financial year, fiscal year. So this must be kept in the mind. So therefore, if you want to take $500,000 from India, you can take 250,000 in March and 250,000 in April. That's not a problem. You can't borrow the money for the purpose of taking money abroad. So therefore, this also should be kept in the mind. And third thing which you should keep in mind, suppose you want to still desire to have a little more money out of India. You have your own money lying in your bank account in India. First become resident, non-resident, and take $1 million per annum. So $1 million is allowed to a person who is a non-resident. So if his own money is lying in the bank account, he becomes the resident of any other country. And to become resident there are 2 rules which you have to follow. One is the foreign exchange, under the Foreign Exchange Management Act also there is a residency which is to be decided, because taking money out of the country requires residency as per the Foreign Exchange Management Act. Tax principles of resident and non-resident are not relevant for this purpose. And therefore, if you are taking, and second thing, if you are taking money in your own name up to $250,000, you need to invest in your own name. You can't invest in your family member's name. You can't use that money for giving it to some other residents. So you have to use that. And therefore, what is important here is you need to have your own money sitting in your account, and that money only you can use it outside India. And if you have desired to become a resident, citizen, or whatever may be the case, first you try to take an employment outside India and become non-resident and take $1 million without difficulties. And then with $1 million, all the schemes which all the speakers, all the speakers on this panel have said that all the schemes are available within $1 million. But for $250,000, I heard just now Canadian, yes, has got 200,000 Canadian dollars investing. You can get it, possibly, yes, not otherwise. What was the other question which you had?
Ms. Oswal, I wanted to know the factors and you've outlined them for us. But I think you can the under the remittance scheme, each family member can remit 23,000 financially, right? So couldn't you just get that 1 million
Yeah.
in your family and then go ahead and make the investment? Because it becomes a chicken and egg situation. Become a non-resident, get the money, then apply. But the whole idea is that you want to get the residentship, but for that you need the money. So could you consider family, funds in the name of the family and then open an account and then make your investment?
The law in India is if your 4 members in the family are taking $250,000 abroad, it in other words, as you said, $1 million per family, then all investment must be made in the 4 persons' name together. You can't invest in one person's name. That becomes a major problem. Suppose I want $1 million. I can't tell my brother, my wife, my sister to put 250,000 each, and I want to buy a property. I can't do that. I have to buy that property in the name of 4 persons, and that will create problem. Particularly the EB5 program, which we have also seen, have difficulties. It has to be in the first name of 1 person, and that becomes a problem.
Okay, so Mr. Oswal, can you help us, for an individual who wants to do this, help us plan. To say, at this point of time, I run a successful business. I'm fairly young, but I have a small child, and I wish that my child gets higher education abroad. So should I start planning now? Should I wait for my child to grow up? Because, like, I think even in Canada, if you are a citizen there, or if you have permanent residency there, sending your child to college is much cheaper. So how do you plan for this decision for the short term, the medium term, and the long term?
Yeah, for a short term, of course, if you plan a vision of accumulating wealth abroad, start right now. So open an account. Maybe if you are quite confident in the stocks of US stocks, it's a very good opportunity today in last 4 years. All the top grade company shares you can buy it and keep it on. Otherwise, keep your money into the bank account, but you will not fetch any interest in those countries. Interest is only in the developing countries and not the developed countries. So therefore, you accumulate your money over a period of time. Say in 4 years, automatically it will become $1 million. So children's education can easily be met out of that. And if you're really planning to have some children's education, you can book an apartment which is under construction, for which you need not have to pay immediately. $250,000 is per annum. Over a period of time, if you're committed liability for construction of a property, that is allowed. That is not, but you can't take borrowing abroad for the purpose of meeting that liability. So next year's remittances will meet your liability. So therefore, over a period of time, you can stagger your investment in a manner that you have accumulated and you have bought a property over there so that your children can stay. You must decide, first of all, which is the place where you want children to be educated. Would you like it to go to USA? Would you like to go them to Australia? Australia's situation today is very bad, but not necessarily it will remain bad. Or UK, because generally Indians are very comfortable in an English speaking countries. And these names which I mentioned is the English speaking countries, but not necessarily. Indians are everywhere. I have seen Indians in Russia. I have seen Indians studying in China also, and Greece and Germany. So we become expert in languages also. So therefore, you decide first of all where you want to take the studies, and then based on planning, start investing money, start keeping money abroad. At a time, you can't take everything. So take in 1 year, $250,000 per annum. You're muted. You're muted.
So that is great advice, Mr. Oswal, on how one can plan for this. The whole planning has to, be very systematic so that everything falls in place when you want it, and you tie up all the loose ends when it comes to the finances as well. Now, David is also with us, and he has written an article about a small island, Vanuatu. Now, I want to understand, David, what is the drawing point of Vanuatu? And for somebody who's planning, say, they ultimately want to send the children to study in Australia or perhaps settle in Australia. Uh, does does this fit in? What is the big draw of Vanuatu?
Well, thank you very much. Many of the people listening may not be familiar with Vanuatu. Vanuatu is actually a grouping of small islands. It's an archipelago of 85 islands in the South Pacific, very close to Fiji and Papua New Guinea. And it, for a long while, was underneath both the British and the French. So being part of the Commonwealth, it has many of the same advantages in terms of freedom of travel as the Caribbean programs. So similar to the Caribbean programs, you're able to receive as a citizen a passport that provides access to the Schengen region in Europe, also to the UK, many other locations, over 127 different countries. Now, Australia is also available to the people as an e-visa application with it, and then multi-year visas can be applied for. The big advantage for people in that region is it's only about 2 hours from Brisbane by flight, and there's direct flights on Air Vanuatu there and to also to Sydney, Melbourne. The Vanuatu right now, though, is in a bit of a bubble because it has the fortunate position of being one of the few places in the world that's remained effectively COVID-free. So it's come around the news a little bit where people have gotten the awareness of the sometimes the benefit of the remote location. Now, unlike other programs, the Vanuatu program, although we discuss it in the same terms as a CBI or citizenship by investment, Vanuatu's program is a donation-based program. So the donation-based program, the primary one that we focus on is called the Development Support Program. And it's a very streamlined program. By staying only in the donation pathway, you're able to potentially receive a complete processing and citizenship in as little as 30 to 45 days, assuming all proper pieces are in place for the due diligence and so forth. Yeah. So it's one of the places that we find many people are looking at as an alternative, especially for business people who may not be looking to relocate, but they want somewhere that has a number of advantages for business travel, allowing them the freedom to fly when they want, where they want. And also relative to starting up businesses, there's zero personal or corporate tax in Vanuatu. There is a local 15% VAT, but of course that only affects you as you're there. Now, that said, it's still a beautiful island. There's many investment opportunities in health and resources and other items, but they're not directly tied to the citizenship program directly.
All right. So we get a sense of how one can evaluate and look to invest in Vanuatu. Now we're getting a lot of questions from the audience, and I think we should take up some of these questions as well. John, let me come to you first. We have a question which has come in, and the question is, can you give us a sense of what is the difference between EB5 direct investment and EB5 regional center investment? Why is the direct investment option still available while the other is frozen by the Senate till further notice? And also from my side, John, if you give us a timeline on the time it takes for us to put in an application and for you to get the green card in the US.
Well, those are two very good questions. Thank you. So first of all, the difference between an EB5 direct and a regional center investment. The most popular form of EB5 visa application since 1990 has been the regional center. And it's because the regional center pools the investment of multiple foreign nationals and then loans the money to a developer, usually in a real estate or hotel or mixed use building. And the benefit of that is it's a truly passive investment. For the investor, they are agreeing to the subscription agreement, investing their money, doing their immigration process, but they don't have to be active in the business. In the EB-5 Direct program, the investor has to effectively buy equity or invest in a business that will create 10 jobs. And in that sense, it's more active. They have to be a member of an LLC or a new commercial enterprise that will, as I say, create the 10 jobs. The second big difference is that in the regional center program, the jobs created can count both direct, people who are on payroll effectively, W-2, and indirect, people who are hired, such as construction firms or service businesses that work for the new enterprise. In the case of EB-5 Direct, those jobs have to be truly direct, meaning only W-2 employees, and that makes it a little bit difficult to hit the threshold of 10 employees per investor, which is required to get the conditions lifted on your green card. Your second question was the timeline in terms of processing. And this is a subject that we've done full webinars on, and we've written multiple white papers on. It's actually quite, it's been difficult working with the federal agency, the USCIS, that handles the processing, because they don't share exactly all the ways that they handle petitions at the different stages as you move from an I-526, which is an application for the EB-5 visa, through to getting a conditional green card or having those conditions lifted. I think the most important thing to say is that, yes, the timelines have stretched out, particularly under the last administration. However, there's a lot of pressure in the government to actually include in new legislation targets that the federal agency would need to meet to bring these times back. Traditionally, it was 18 months. It has stretched out to 24 or even 30 months, which is quite a long time. We recognize that. And we actually believe it should be under, ideally under 1 year in terms of the different stages of the process.
Right. John, could you also tell us what is the difference in the minimum threshold investment in the regional center and the direct investment group?
So the actual amount of investment is the same across the two programs. They both use the same regulation. In fact, because it is one visa category. The amount of money has traditionally for years been $500,000 if the investment is in a new enterprise that's in a rural area or a targeted economic area. And that's one roughly that has unemployment of 150% of the national average. For both the regional center and the direct program, there are two levels. One, if the business is in one of these locations, as I said, 500,000 and traditionally, or 1 million if it's not. In 2019, that investment went up to 900,000 and 1.8 million. And then amazingly, at the end of June, a federal court overthrew those regulations that moved the investment level up. And so it's currently back at 500,000 and 1.8, and 1 million if it's outside of a targeted economic area.
Okay. Nirpal, there is a question that is coming for you. As a Golden Visa expert, in a budget of about $500,000 for a family of 4, which destination would process our visa at the fastest pace and has a good schooling system for our children?
Right. Thank you for the question. And I believe in the recent years, the demand for residence by investment programs, particularly in Europe, has drastically increased. And one of the reasons for that is a moderate investment threshold and very fast processing times. And the third piece to that is also most of these countries, they tend to have something called resident non-domicile taxation, which means as long as you're not doing 180 days physically in these jurisdictions, your global income is usually untouched. And obviously you should speak to Mr. Oswal on that in more detail. But the key programs which particularly fall under that budget, and I think we've had an onshore presence in India for the last 2 years. We have 7 client advisors across major cities. The most popular program for us this year in India has been the Portugal Golden Visa, right? All you need to do is you invest 280,000 euros in a real estate project. And on that basis, you're able to get a Portuguese residency. And after 5 years, you could possibly apply for a Portuguese citizenship. All you need to do is spend 7 days every year in Portugal. The second most popular program that's been there for us is the Greece Golden Visa program. So we're looking at 250,000 euros. And on that basis, you can acquire a residency in Greece. From an education point of view, we've seen a lot of interest in Malta because it's completely bilingual. Everybody speaks English, and Malta is trying to establish itself as an education hub. We're looking at around a mixed capital requirement of 170,000 euros, and in just 4 to 6 months, you can get a Maltese residency. But again, if you are able to increase your budget, you can look at places like Switzerland, where we could negotiate a yearly lump sum tax facility for you with a canton, and that would give you a Swiss residence. And one of the reasons why a lot of families, particularly obviously EB5 still remains one of the most important programs when it comes to investment migration in India. But families are starting to realize that they should consult a tax lawyer before they get involved with anything to do with US. And as a result of that, they're starting to look at Europe, which becomes quite benign and neutral from a taxation point of view. So I think these are a couple of things which families are now looking at, and these would be the three most important European residence by investment programs that we see our clients are pursuing in India. And they all fall within the 500,000 USD limit. And as Mr. Oswal rightly mentioned, this is very important, and everybody should follow this, that RBI does not allow clubbing of funds. And everybody should sort of make a note of that, because a lot of families come to us and say, hey, as Mr. Oswald mentioned previously, can I combine my wife and my husband's LRS limit and pursue these programs? No, it doesn't work like that. It all has to come through your account. You should plan in advance, set up your LRS structures offshore and use that remittance every year to accumulate wealth to pursue these programs.
I guess it takes a few years to get it right, to get your funds right. Now, I have a question for Natasha. Natasha, the question is, what is the eligibility criteria to apply for Dominica?
So the Dominica Citizenship by Investment Programme, main applicants need to be over the age of 18 and they need to have enough funds to make the investment. Now, main applicants can also include a number of family members in the application, and there are certain requirements that apply to both the main applicant and the family members. So both the main applicant and family members must also be in good health, and this is demonstrated in the application process through the filling out of a health form by a medical practitioner. And then, and most importantly, applicants and their family members need to be of good character, which means they need to be reputable individuals with no criminal background and with a clean source of funds and source of wealth. And this is the most important requirement because individuals with a criminal history or with an unclean source of funds, source of wealth, will be flagged during the due diligence process and they will not be accepted for citizenship. So those are the main eligibility requirements. And it is worth noting that with the Dominica Citizenship by Investment Programme, there are no travel or residency requirements, either before, during, or after citizenship is obtained. So that's one thing that the Caribbean, with the exception of Antigua and Barbuda, really stands out for. And so I would say they're the main application criteria that people should be aware of if they are interested in the Dominica Citizenship by Investment Programme.
All right. David, there is a question for you. From a business point of view, what are the top industries investors should look at for setting up a business in Vanuatu? So you said, I think in Vanuatu is so far, it is only just a donation-based resident permit, right?
If I heard your question properly, you were asking as far as what investment opportunities there are.
Yes.
Vanuatu, you want to think about it as it's a very idyllic island, yet the main island has a very well-built airport. So it's a very accessible location to areas such as Australia. And it's very well known and popular throughout Asia also as a destination. So tourism, though, has not grown to the point where you'll see it in the Caribbean. So things that we've watched grow up in the Caribbean, some of the beautiful construction that's been done in Dominica and Grenada and so forth. Vanuatu hasn't had that growth spurt yet. Now, one thing with that though is it means that there's a lot of available land and the cost of land is often much less than someone might pay elsewhere. So I've had people who at some point may have been considering doing a CBI in another country that included some type of investment into a hotel project or other piece where they would have fractional ownership. And for very similar costs, they were able to purchase a home or apartment outright in Vanuatu and then use the donation program for their citizenship. So it's a bit of a balance. In terms of large scale investment opportunities, those are ones that we have partners that specifically focus on high net worth individuals that want to invest into the country. So for those persons, I just recommend that you contact us directly and then we'll direct you to the proper location.
All right, thank you for that, David. Mr. Ospal, we've got a question from the audience. Could you put light on how an Indian investing in real estate property in the UK or the UAE get a bank loan in the country for up to 40% of the total sum, as we are ready to pay upfront the remainder of the cost of the property?
I think your voice was cracking, but what question possibly you wanted to ask is how do you take bank loan abroad, isn't it? Is it that case?
Yeah, specifically in UK and UAE, can you take loan for 40% of the total sum if you're willing to pay the remainder 60% upfront?
No, 40% is too high. You can take the loan from the bank even at a 20% of the upfront payment and rest bank will fund it. But the issue is Indian resident is not entitled to borrow abroad. As an individual, I can't borrow a single dollar abroad. It will be considered as a violation of Foreign Exchange Management Act and I can be put behind bars. So therefore, violation of law in India is taken very strictly. You cannot do that. But if you can set up a company abroad for a legitimate business purpose, you need to then find out what is your legitimate business purpose for which you are entitled to set up the company. And this $250,000 you are invested into that legitimate business purpose company, and that company borrows the money from the bank, and then you have taken the property. Property is permitted. But that property taken by the company should not be let out. It should be used by you. Reserve Bank of India has taken this view that, and there is no regulation on it. Interestingly, Reserve Bank is silent on the subject. But when we make an application, subsequent applications of remittances, Reserve Bank of India comes to know about it. They start issuing notices to the investor. So therefore, better be careful, be on the right side of the RBI. When you set up a company abroad, ensure that the company set up abroad is for a business purpose. For example, I'm a professional. I can set up a professional company for advising the company and genuinely. And then I have invested from here $250,000. My property value is say $1 million. I can buy property of $1 million by taking bank loan, leveraging from the bank $750,000. Interest rates are very low abroad, and therefore it is much cheaper abroad to take fund from banks. Indian interest rates are very high. If you borrow here, it is 10 to 11%. That's the issue. That's the difference.
But an individual cannot borrow for a property abroad. Is
no, not at all. Not at all. Clear no.
Okay. We have a question for you, Ignacio. How is the Canadian economy recovering from the current pandemic? How badly has it affected the job market for permanent residency hopefuls?
Well, the Canadian economy is recovering from the pandemic pretty much in the same way that the US economy has recovered. So clearly there was a dip in the economy during 2020, and now it's on the way back to being normal. Canada has had relatively strict COVID precautions, which impacted activities such as the restaurant sector, and continues to impact such activities, but it is returning. In terms of investor immigration, one of the biggest challenges for investors over the last 18 months has been the inability to travel to Canada. This impacted Canadian provincial nominee programs in the entrepreneur classification, which used to require in-person visits to the province to you complete the process, as is was one of the explicit requirements, for example, in places like British Columbia and Ontario. They have tried to overcome those problems by proposing webinar or Zoom-based visits as opposed to in-person visits. And that has been a small improvement, but clearly the challenge is not only on the government side and in the PNP programs. The challenge is also on the investor side, because investors need to, as we say in Canada, kick the tires. They need to feel that they are meeting the people, seeing the locale, and making sure that their investment funds are going to be used in the way that they are envisioning them. So the inability to travel has been extraordinarily significant in making investment decisions in Canada.
Let's hope it becomes better and travel restarts so that, even your investment decisions pick up.
Yeah, things are definitely getting better, and there's massive interest right now in gearing up for 2022, because we clearly see that things, when the economy and international travel is improving quickly, and people are anxious to do that, are anxious to move forward.
All right. We have one more question for Nirbhay. Nirbhay, the question is, does setting up a high turnover business in an EU nation help in attaining the golden visa? Is there a program that Luxembourg or Belgium runs? Is via Diamond Traders?
Right. We don't particularly advise in those programs, so I wouldn't be aware. I think any program that Henley offers has to go through our internal due diligence, which is a multi-layered process. And unfortunately, we're not working with those jurisdictions at this point.
Okay. So that's the answer that Nirbhay has. John, we have one last question, which I'll pose to you. It's actually come to you only. And the question is, do you think when the EB5 program will resume, does it go back to 500,000 US dollars, or will it be 900,000 US dollars?
Yeah, this is again trying to read the crystal ball of legislation and regulation in Washington, D.C. The investment level is $500,000 right now. When the regional center comes back, unless what reauthorizes it sets a new investment level, it will stay at $500,000. The question then becomes, how long will it stay there before the federal agencies and the Department of Homeland Security pass regulations to reset it, for example, to 900,000? We can't say for sure, but we believe there will be a window at 500,000. But we do know that they have indicated that they prefer the regulations from 2019 at 900,000. The agency does.
All right. It's just a few more months perhaps to get that clarity for the EB5 program, but I would like to thank all our speakers who have contributed to the Global Arena Magazine for joining us today and talking about the different residency by investment programs that many countries are offering. On offer, how high net worth individuals can assess the options, make decisions, plan, and arrange for their finances as well. Big thank you to all of you. Now, I already have my magazine, and this is the treasure trove for all those who have questions, who have sent us questions. And if you have any subsequent questions, look at the magazine. You will find the website addresses of the companies that all our speakers represent. You get more information, you can get in touch with them. But believe me, this is gold. You have so much information in this, and also not going to change overnight. So this is going to be at least it's going to work for you for the next years. There's a lot of information, detailed tables, investigate your hands on the Global Arena magazine. A big thank you to all our speakers for taking time and joining us, and a big thank you to the participants for
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a
Thank
thank
you.
you.
A big thank you
Congratulations
to all
on
of
the
you.
launch of the magazine.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to all our panelists for such an insightful panel discussion and for your contribution in making this launch successful. In case you didn't get a chance to ask your question or your query remains unanswered, please feel free to write to us on the given email address in the chat box. Thank you everyone for joining us and being a part of this launch.